So, Terp, yesterday, you were over at the Auerbach Center.
I was.
Celtics had a practice.
They did.
Missoula spoke. Some other players spoke. Now, the scuttlebutt yesterday was Jaylen Brown was expected to speak. He did not. Should we read into that in any way, shape, or form?
No, because, I can't confirm or deny if that was from PR. Like, I don't know for a fact that he was supposed to speak. So, he's been around the team. It'd be one thing if his status was in the air. But, they've been pretty clear. Joe Mazzulla explicitly said the other day that he's going to play in Game 1. So it'd be different if his status was in the air. Granted, I know it's the biggest story going into the postseason. Jaylen Brown's health is the story. But, there's no question about his status. He's going to be playing.
Well, Ramona Shelburne, with her report about him getting pain management, never said he wasn't going to play. She said he's expected to play in Game 1. He's getting shots to manage the pain.
He also mentioned that he was going to do that. Mentioned a couple weeks ago that there was treatment lined up, that he was going to go through different things.
Okay, but that's not, I'm getting a needle in my knee that's been bothering me.
What else would it be, though?
Well, I don't know. If it's treatments, that sounds to me like massaging and stretching and treatment. There's a lot of different ways you could take that, a lot of different things. That doesn't mean I'm getting an injection in my knee.
Yeah, I don't think the injection's as big of a deal because he mentioned that there was going to be things to come, and this is going to be a story the entire time. This is something that's not going to go away. This is something he's going to deal with throughout the postseason. He's been pretty clear with that as well. So I think Jaylen's been really transparent with all of this, maybe except for the All-NBA stuff and how much that actually mattered. With regard to the injury itself, though, I feel like he's been very transparent and honest with what's going on. And, he's admitted, he's not going to be himself at all times during this postseason. That's something that he has to come to grips with. That's what he said a couple weeks ago. So we'll see what happens. Again, this is going to be the biggest story going through the postseason. How healthy is Jaylen Brown? And, Jones, you mentioned it the other day that he hasn't passed the 30-minute mark since the Oklahoma City game. He averaged 36 in the postseason last year. So we'll see what happens with the minutes and all that, but he's out a week off now, and hopefully that can do a little something.
So what do you think changed from when the last two games we saw him, he plays just over 20 minutes, Mazzulla had that line we did what we needed to do, doesn't play fourth quarter overtime against the Knicks, and then doesn't play the last couple of games of the season. So what changed in your mind there?
I think there's two things. One, he really might have realized that, this All-NBA thing might not be as much of a lock as he might have thought originally, because people started right around that time really putting out their ballots.
Yeah,
this is who's going to pick. We gave ours.
We both did, yeah.
We didn't have him on there, and people with votes put him out there, and he wasn't really on there. So maybe he was aware of that and it's all right, it's not worth pushing for this. Or he just realized he's not doing himself any good. He's learned everything he can about this injury. Now, let's rest up a little bit. Let's see if this helps. You would imagine that any rest is better than no rest. It's not going to cure the whole thing, but having a week or 2 weeks off to kind of get off that knee and rest up would be much better than playing through an injury in meaningless games. And you look at that Knicks game, man, he was struggling out there. That was the worst he's looked. And he hasn't looked bad the entire time when dealing with this injury, but that one was not good.
So that one was bad. His month of March, we were reading Kevin Pelton the other day. It was his worst month, I think, scoring since 2019.
Points per game wise?
Yeah.
Because his efficiency was up.
Well, not really.
His shooting numbers were up compared to the entire season because he had a career low season.
He shot 43% in March. He shot 28% on threes.
Since returning from the 3-game absence, he was 40% from 3 and 51% from the field.
Okay, but if he's looking like he looked against New York, or how he played in the month of March, 18 a game, 43%, 28% from 3, can they win a title if that's the best Jaylen can give you?
He's shown that he can. To the point about the scoring, they're going to need more than that with his scoring. Look how important he was last year. That's why he won conference finals and NBA finals MVP. But he's shown that he can adapt. The big thing is there's no burst, right? With the knee, he can't push off as much. He can't play the way that Jaylen Brown plays. And the best thing about him is he really sets the tone in transition. He sets the tone with his physicality defensively. So they're going to be missing that. So I guess the scoring could take a backseat because you have so many guys that are capable, right? You have Tatum is capable of taking on a bigger load. Kristaps Porzingis, if you can keep him healthy, you didn't have that luxury last season. Derek White can score. Drew Holiday can score when needed. They can all do it. So I'm not necessarily worried about the scoring aspect of it, more so what he does defensively, because that's not all quantifiable in the stat sheet. What he does, picking up the opponent's best players, really setting the tone with his physicality. And that's something they're going to need against Orlando even. Granted, they can win this series without Jaylen Brown. But in matching the physicality, Jaylen Brown is often the one that spearheads that, and they're going to be missing that, assuming that he's not 100% and can't really shoulder his entire workload.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Orlando? They make the fewest threes per game in the NBA. Celtics, obviously, far and away, make the most threes, a bit of a contrast in styles. Paolo Banchero, great player. They've dealt with injuries throughout the year. They're still dealing with injuries, but your take on this Orlando team?
Yeah, there's one stat that tells the story of the Orlando Magic. They were held under 100 points more than anybody in the NBA this season. They also held opponents under 100 points more than anyone in the NBA. So their defense is terrific. Their offense, not so much. And the three-point volume is going to be the big key here because the Celtics had some of their worst three-point shooting nights against Orlando. Granted, one of those was in the last game of the season when nobody was playing. The second one was without Jason Tatum. When, you had everyone else healthy, but Jason Tatum does a lot in terms of creating threes just with his spacing and his gravity. So they were missing there, but Orlando does a good job of keeping teams off the perimeter. They're one of the best perimeter defensive teams in the league. So that three-point volume is going to be something to watch. But I also look at how bad their offense is. And did you guys watch that play in the other night when they go scoreless in the third quarter and they only put up like 18 points, I believe it was in the third quarter? If you go scoreless for 5 to 7 minutes against the Celtics, they're going to go on a big run. So the Celtics are going to have to capitalize on those opportunities when this offense naturally is going to go stagnant because they just cannot score. They were second or third to last in points per game. They have one of the worst offensive ratings. The Celtics need to capitalize on that and build a run, and then Orlando might not have the firepower to punch back. Like you go down 20 or whatever off a big run, they don't have the offense to punch back.
Pure Hoops with Turp on a Thursday here on Jones and Keefe. You got questions for Turp about the Celtics and their playoff run, you can jump in. 617-779-7937. You can send in your questions on Twitter as well, at Jones and Keefe. You told me this off the air the other day. I was just looking it up. Joe Mazzulla's, because I'm not worried about the Magic. They should sweep the Magic with or without Jaylen Brown. I'd be disappointed if Orlando took a game off the Celtics. So I'm not concerned about them. But you brought up an interesting stat. Mazzulla's the only team he has a losing record against is Orlando. Is that right?
One of the few.
Okay, one of the few.
Yeah.
Why? Like, why have they? Because it's not just this year in the games you mentioned where they have a poor shooting night, but there were 2 games without Tatum. Why in his 3 years as head coach is this one of the few teams that he has a losing record against?
Remember his first year, I believe it was, they swept them. It was a weekend series at the Garden, and they swept them. It's really their length and physicality. Some of those teams have given the Celtics problems in the past with these lengthy teams that force turnovers, that really stop you, slow you down offensively. Those have given the Celtics some issues, and I think that's what Orlando does. They're annoying. Like, what they're going to do is annoying. They're going to get up on you. They're going to pressure you. They're going to really make you work offensively. And in the past, I think that's really bothered the Celtics. I think this iteration of the Celtics, where they have so many different ways to punish you, it's a little bit different, and that record could be skewed like this year's loss. I mean, the first one, in fairness, the Celtics were without Jason Tatum, but they were without Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. So it was kind of a cancellation there. The last game of the season, obviously, that just didn't count, right? We'll just throw that one out the window.
Yeah, no one played.
Nobody
for the Celtics,
played in that one. And that was a game they had to win to get into the play-in at the 7 seed. So that was one they were going all, and they still couldn't score 100 points. Like, that's what I'm talking about with the offense. Like, they had the main Celtics out there, and they scored 96 points. Like, that's the thing. So I picked this series to go 5. I really do think they can get one. Just the Celtics will have a bad three-point shooting night because that's what they do. Like, Orlando has built that reputation where they're going to guard the perimeter and the Celtics will struggle. And Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner have been incredible in the last couple weeks here. They had a really strong end to the season. They were won 9 of their last 12. Paolo scored 30, I think 5 of those games. Wagner scored at least 20 in all of them, except for the play-in. So they're going to get one game, I think, just one night offensively. They're going to get it. The Celtics are going to struggle. But really, this isn't the series the Celtics should sweat. There's a reason they're minus 8,000 favorites.
It seems like they really miss Jalen Suggs.
Minus 8,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Suggs is good. Not that Suggs puts up these crazy numbers. That is more Paolo Banchero. That is more Wagner. But it seems like since he's gone down, you look at like what their starting backcourt's going to be, like that is a major loss.
Yeah, I mean, he was an all-defensive guard last year. He's their third leading scorer, too, and a team that doesn't score very much. Right. And Mo Wagner, too, Celtic legend.
Yes,
from back in the Wagner days. Yeah, he was their 4th leading scorer off the bench. So they've been really – injuries have kind of derailed them all year. I don't think the 41-41 record's really indicative of what they are. Right. Because at one point they were 8 games above 500 it was, and they dropped down to 6.
Yeah. Right.
6 below 500, and then they got back up to 500. So injuries have really derailed their season a little bit, but again, they do things that are going to bother other teams, like their defense. That's why they're there, and we saw it against Atlanta. What they did to Trae Young in the first quarter, I know he got going, but he was like scoreless in the first quarter, and they fell behind like almost 20. So, they do the little things.
So, I know you've mentioned a bunch the Western Conference gauntlet. There's no guarantee it'll be OKC on the other side. We now know the path for OKC, and it really isn't easy. They're going to get the winner of Dallas and Memphis. I mean, I think that's pretty easy. But then they'll get the winner of Denver and the Clippers in round 2, and maybe the Lakers in the Western Conference final. I would not want to see that matchup for the Celtics on the other side. That's the only team I would pick head-to-head to beat the Celtics, East or West. What's the likelihood OKC gets out of the West?
I'm looking at that Clippers series, man. Like, that Clippers team is good. With Kawhi back healthy now, James Harden's had a good
Denver.
year.
I think they're going to beat Denver.
I think they're going to beat Denver.
I think they've been playing well.
Yeah.
And so that's not going to be an easy look, I'd pick OKC in that series. That's not going to be an easy series, though. And
that's the thing, too, when you're looking at it this way. And I know there's still, like you said, there's a lot that has to go right between now and then. But you're looking at the path for Oklahoma City. You're going to have to go through Denver or the Clippers. And when you're looking at the Celtics, it's like you got Orlando, who you should win in 4 or 5. And then you got the Knicks. And I think they match up better against the Knicks than they do against the Magic. We've seen them torment them all year.
You think the Pistons can pick off the Knicks?
I think they'll make it close. I just don't think they have enough right now. It all depends on Karl-Anthony Towns in that series. Like, if Karl-Anthony Towns shows up, if he really is the player that they went out and got, and granted they wanted him to be a little bit better against like the teams against the Celtics and these better teams, upper echelon teams at the East and West. They haven't done great against either one of those teams, but I think if Karl-Anthony Towns shows up and plays well, they're going to win. I mean, Detroit's a fun story. They're a great team. One of the best turnarounds we've ever seen. Like, that team set an NBA record for most consecutive losses last year, and now they're in the NBA playoffs. Like, it's incredible what they've done, but I just don't see them beating New York, especially if Karl-Anthony Towns is playing well.
So that's the one upset pick that I'm taking in the East, because I think the Pacers win, obviously Celtics and Cavs. In the West, I'm still going to take the Nuggets in that one over the Clippers.
But even that one's not like a real upset.
It's not a true
right?
upset. Now, Rockets-Warriors, I feel like most people are going to take the
fun.
Yeah, most people are going to take the Warriors, but I think the Rockets have been cooking all year, like quietly.
Maybe
you're taking the Warriors.
Maybe I'm the idiot, but I'll take Golden State.
Sucker's bet or buying opportunity?
Honestly, it's probably
that
a
feels
sucker's
like maybe
bet,
a sucker's bet.
but I'm going to take it.
I mean, how good they've been since Jimmy Butler. It's hard to bet against them. And I dare Ime to run drop coverage against Steph Curry again. Do it again.
No, I don't know.
He's already learned his lesson.
Yeah, don't do that.
I mean, again, like we talking about the team, like the Pistons that are on the younger side. The Rockets are very young.
Oh, yeah.
Going against like Steph Curry and Steve Kerr, that's going to be a tough challenge. I think Vegas is heavily favoring the Warriors at -200, I think it was.
I mean, Lakers Warriors would be, for basketball fans, like an awesome round two.
NBA would love that.
Yeah. Maybe just penciling the Lakers into the Western Conference Final is getting ahead of ourselves with Golden State. Lakers would beat the Rockets, I think. But yeah, maybe I shouldn't pencil that in too quickly. Episode 7, Celtic City, out this week on HBO Max. Keefe and I reviewed it quickly yesterday. Two real, I think, standout storylines or, headline storylines. The passing of Reggie Lewis, which Shaughnessy said, he's like, it's the worst story I had to cover. No good came out of it. Every day was worse than the next. It was awful, tragic. So that was covered thoroughly. 25 minutes of the episode was spent on Reggie Lewis. Roughly the rest of it was spent on Patino, who comes across as just a complete clown to this day. What'd you think of episode 7?
Yeah, I got a quick brag. I covered Rick Pitino. Covered him last month. It was the Johnnies. A little bit of a brag.
An outside brag of the week.
Yeah,
nice. Good job.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I covered him last month for March Madness in the first round, and it feels like nothing's changed.
No.
And it's the funniest thing when he's talking about like the D Brown thing. He's like, yeah, he wasn't part of our plan, so I don't remember much.
They slipped him a note like he just died on the traders, and that's how you cut him? Or traded him, I mean? Like, what the hell was that?
D Brown rightfully is still
don't
pissed
pack
about
your stuff.
that.
D Brown was awesome in this episode.
Tremendous.
And he also was the perfect guy to have on because he was on the Reggie team. Actually, he played with McHale Parrish. Like, played with those guys, played with Reggie Lewis, had to speak to the media after finding out that he died. Like, I can't imagine being in that situation. And then also was a part of the early horrible Patino era.
And all this negativity that's in this town sucks.
What a rant.
Yeah,
it's an all-timer.
What an all-timer.
And great that they got him because he's obviously not going to come across good.
No,
and most guys, when they know they're going to be looked at bad in a documentary, are going to just say no.
Full credit to Patino for doing it.
I'm glad he did.
Now, he looks like a clown.
He is a clown.
But credit for doing it. I think we said something somebody mentioned this to me. It was very similar to Grady Little being in the comeback. I'm like, I can't believe you agreed to do it. Good for you. You're a moron still,
right?
But good for you for doing it.
And he steps in, he basically sends Red Arm back to the mail room. He's like, we don't need you anymore.
He changed 12 people's roles, immediately coming in and took over as president. And it was Jack McMullen was like, Red was in a celebratory president anyway. It wasn't even day-to-day.
You didn't need to do it.
You get to draft your Ron
Poor
Mercer.
guy's 80-something probably, at the time.
Just loves the Celtics, just breeds Celtics.
And was it D. Brown that was telling the story where Patino came over during the timeout and was like, these people paid good money to see me coach. You guys going to play better.
I just remember this. How about is it Chris Wallace? Was that the GM's thing?
Yes. Yeah, they wanted him to lose weight.
He told him to lose 50 pounds.
50 pounds.
He's like, we gotta look like lean and mean or whatever he said. Your mission.
So
your mission is you gotta drop weight.
This was in writing. This not like he said this behind closed doors.
That was incredible.
I was watching the episode and
Chris Wallace?
Yeah. He was the GM for a while. And so I was watching the episode, and my wife's on her phone on the couch, and she looks up, and they're talking. Chris Wallace is telling the story that he had to lose all this weight, and then she's like, "Was he a player?" And I was like, "No, he wasn't a player," and they still wanted him to lose all that weight. I'd never heard that story before.
Another thing too, the Chauncey Billups thing. I don't think that gets
51
talked
games?
about enough. This dude's a Hall of Famer. You traded him before his rookie season ended.
Although it's another really bad trade.
They traded him and Joe Johnson right away.
You think the Clippers are going to look back on trading Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and be like, they traded him pretty early?
Was that after a year?
Might have been in year 2. It was pretty early, wasn't it?
That's for your guy. That's for Paul George.
I know. I like Paul George, but how'd that work out?
Pretty hard not to if he's assumingly going to win MVP. I don't think any of us have him winning MVP.
He played
it feels like he's gonna.
He played one season with the Clippers, and then they traded him. And now he's going to be the MVP, and he's still in his 20s. But yeah, the whole Patino run was just forgettable. Although, I remember, it was you remember where you were situation.
1,000%.
Halloween night.
You weren't born yet, Turp.
But 1997 Halloween.
Halloween, they beat the Jordan Bulls, Patino's first game.
It's probably my last year trick-or-treating. It was a big part. I remember it was a big group.
Yeah.
Probably not far from the popcorn stand in Goffstown. It was at a girl's house, brag.
Wow.
There's dudes, guys and gals mingling together in middle school.
Sick brag,
That's right,
bro.
And that we must have been done trick-or-treating. Then we went in there, we watched the end of the Celtics game, and I'm like, holy smokes, this team's going to be great. They just beat the Bulls? They beat the Bulls?
I was so in.
And then they lost pretty much every game after that.
I said this to Nick.
And the Bulls went on to win the title.
I remember Nick can vouch for me. I remember this vividly. I'm like, I remember that game so well, and then I know they lost the next 5 games. They immediately lost the next 5 games after that. We looked it up before the show. 5 straight losses right after that.
They're a mess.
It was unbelievably exciting.
But I'm glad they highlighted this time. I said this yesterday, just because for people our age, there's that window of time where it wasn't the championship team. They didn't get Pierce yet. I know they get into it here in '98 when they draft him. But there's that weird kind of no man's land time where you have the awful tragedy of Reggie Lewis. Then you still have 4 more seasons of what is this? They did Dino Racha dirty, by the way, because they were talking about how bad the team was.
Yeah, they showed him.
And they showed him falling down.
Turn it over.
I'm pretty sure he was an 18-10 guy. Dino Racha wasn't bad.
Hall of Famer.
Because then they're showing the Marty Conlon team with ML Carr. And I'm like, no, those are different. That team with ML Carr was insane.
Reminds me a little of the Patriots now. They got this big dynasty. Rick Pitino was just a nicer Gerard Mayo.
Yeah.
Or Gerard Mayo was just a nicer Rick Pitino.
Not wrong.
That's all it was.
He
was just a nicer Rick Pitino.
Right.
ML Carr.
What was that
all
about?
Hang on. Now look. Now
we're into this wide-ranging search for head coach. Sure. I am the head coach.
Who said that? Was that D. Brown? D. Brown's he did this whole search and he hired himself.
And everyone hated it.
Okay, obviously, ML Carr said he got death threats and all these awful messages. Obviously that shouldn't happen. That goes without saying. But him trying to justify that actually he wasn't really that bad. No, dude, you were that bad. No one should threaten your life. No one should hurl epithets at you. But you were not good. Let's not change history now.
You were awful. I also like Michael Holley on there telling the story about how even Rick Pitino sends ML Carr to the draft lottery. So, like, the face of not getting Tim Duncan is ML Carr. It doesn't have to be Patino.
Yeah,
pretty smart.
That was a cagey move.
That really was.
That really was.
Call.
And he
that lives
stayed
on
with
forever.
the organization, too. Like, after his coaching,
Well,
bumped down.
I mean, do they?
Well, then did the draft lottery, obviously, but, like, stayed within the organization.
But
they clearly
does he still have a role with the organization? Like,
ML Carr?
none of that would shock. Like, some sort of ceremonial. Did they fire anybody with the Celtics? I feel like they
no,
really
they
don't.
move them around.
The players just get they're
Well,
all in like they're all in ceremonial roles.
It's true.
It is funny because like they had such a, we have to hire guys from the Celtics thing. Like whether it's Casey Jones, I mean Chris Ford, for God's sakes, they don't even really talk about much.
No,
like they're all
forgettable era.
Yeah, it is. But like all those guys were just, he played for the team, so he'd be a good GM, or he played for the team, he'd be a good coach. Because some of them were right, and then others were not necessarily the right call. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I think the episode prior, the two before, when you're getting like Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson, are obviously going to be better.
Those were hard to beat. The 4, 5, 6 have been the best so far, but episode 7 was good.
Yeah, no, I think it's gotten better as it goes. I mean, we continue to talk about that. Maybe it's just because you relate to it more, like you understand it a little bit more, but I think it's just gotten better and better.
Okay. Pure Hoops with Turp. A day late, but well worth the wait. We'll see how Jaylen Brown looks come postseason. You got Orlando getting the game off the Celtics. We have sweeps over here. We'll talk to you next week. Turp, thanks for jumping in.
Thank you.
Check out Turp on Twitter at Justin M. Turpin. You can check out all his work throughout the Celtics run in the postseason, weei.com.
I got one text to read. I remember my brother caught Dino Raja trying to sneak into the movies in Framingham with his 6'6" tall girlfriend.